Before I start this review, I want to forewarn everybody that instead of saying Ethan Hawke throughout this review, I said Ethan Hunt, as in the guy from Mission Impossible. In 1973, a criminal robbed the largest bank in Stockholm, Sweden. The robbery itself took nearly a week. As a result, one of the hostages began to feel compassion for her captors, ultimately coining the term Stockholm Syndrome. This is their story. Finally, they made a movie about the event that coined the term Stockholm Syndrome, which is amazing. In theory, in actuality, guys, it's a bummer. I want you to think for a second on how you would actually make a movie about Stockholm Syndrome. Think about it for a second. You'd probably do the same thing as me. You'd probably make it a psychological thriller. You'd tell a story, but you'd probably also want the audience to feel like they're getting sucked in, like they're feeling the Stockholm Syndrome too. You want a villain that's so bad, but also really relatable at the same way, so that when you're watching, you don't know who to root for. That is the whole idea behind Stockholm Syndrome, right? It's psychological. To be honest, as an audience member, I felt more Stockholm Syndrome when I was watching Thanos in Avengers Infinity War than I felt for this guy. Thanos has a history. Thanos has a reason for doing things. He's relatable. This guy's robbing a bank for no apparent reason because he has no history behind what he's doing, but I'll get into it. Just know that normally I don't exactly rate the tone and the feel of a movie because for the most part, filmmakers know what they're doing. They know what their movie should feel like. Everything in me says this should be a psychological thriller that makes the audience feel captivated and feel like they're having Stockholm Syndrome at the same time. It's a movie about the event that coined the term Stockholm Syndrome. Instead, this is something that is weirdly comedic, or at least it feels like it's trying to be.
Get over there! Has she been shot? No, she hasn't been shot. She's obviously got a muscle cramp or something. Get her a banana and get everybody out of here!
Which is the first red flag, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everything else is terrible, so let's get into it. So the people category goes over a lot of things, but the main thing that I was focusing on was chemistry, because when it comes down to the Stockholm Syndrome idea, it's all about chemistry. It's all about getting inside the head of somebody else and manipulating them, and that has something to do with chemistry. How can the audience relate to you? How can you relate to other characters unless there is some good chemistry going on? I hated the chemistry in this movie. None of it makes a lick of sense. I never fully felt why this character was falling for their captor or whatever. I just never found it believable, and that's mostly due to chemistry. It just wasn't there. Everything else in this category, acting, characters, casting, importance, it's all cinematically monotonous. It's neither great or bad. It's completely forgettable, which is incredibly frustrating to me because I love Noomi Rapace and Ethan Hunt. They're very, very talented people, very talented actors. I still believe that Noomi is the best girl in The Dragon's Tattoo that we've ever seen in her Swedish film, and I hate foreign movies. She has talent. I've seen her in so many great things, and she is so forgettable in this. Same with Ethan Hunt. I've seen him in a million things that I've really enjoyed. Forgettable here. 8 out of 20 possible stars. The writing category is where I would have preferred a lot of mental things, a lot of psychological things thrown in. I just wanted to feel like what he was doing in this bank was for a higher purpose, that it made me root for him, that it made me whatever. At the end, he's just at a bank robbing it for no apparent reason because they never really dive deep into his character or his motivations or anything like that. He's just some guy robbing some bank. How are we supposed to feel Stockholm Syndrome for him? How are we supposed to believe that this girl felt Stockholm Syndrome for him? This was very, very frustrating once again because everything was forgettable and it didn't feel like it was really going anywhere. 5 out of 10 possible stars for the writing category. Behind the scenes was fine, nothing fantastic. They didn't really focus so much on it. It's basically got the same score a comedy, a modern comedy would have. I feel like if they focused a little bit more on this category specifically, the movie would be a little bit more memorable, would be a little bit more on people's radars than it was ultimately, but because they completely ignored most of the things in this category, it joins the rest of everything else in being forgettable and blah. 6 out of 10 possible stars. When it comes down to basic narrative arc, introduction, inciting incident, obstacles, climax, and falling action, we have something here that's fine, but it could have been a whole lot better if they actually focused on an introduction. At the start of this movie, there is no introduction to these characters or what they're doing in their lives. Thus, you don't really feel like they're relatable characters in any real sense of the word. Instead, it kind of starts on the inciting incident, which is the bank robbery itself. You're a little unclear about the obstacles of this movie because it's like, what's the movie actually about? Is it about the bank robbery? Is it about trying to get into this woman's head? It's not ever very, very clear about what they're doing because it never really focused on that again. The climax is fine and the following action is fine. 7 out of 10. Next, we look at the entertainment category because a lot of things could technically go wrong, but it could still be very, very entertaining. So is it? The idea and the concept of the movie was kind of cool, but that's all I can really say about this movie because I don't really care to rewatch it. I'm not going to own it or buy it. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to recommend it. And at no point in the movie does it feel like I was going to miss something if I looked away. Entertainment gets 1 out of 10. Specialty category. What do you expect to find out of Stockholm? I'll say it again. I'm a big fan of Noomi or Rapace, also Ethan Hunt. So how are they in their respective roles? Noomi is fine. Ethan is fine. Everybody is fine, and they are utterly, utterly forgettable. When talking about either of them, this movie will not come up. 0 for both. Whenever we talk about a movie that's based off of a true story, I also like to look deep into the actual story of what happened and see how much they got right, how much it still feels like a movie, things like that. They did get a lot of things right, but it was also a fictionalized version of the story, so they also made a lot of stuff up at the same time. However, I think whenever they used creative liberties in this movie, they ruined whatever worked about the real true story. I think that mostly has to do with tone and feel, but it's also probably content. So I'm going to give it 5 out of 10 for that. Halfway decent. Did they make the movie they intended to make from the get-go? I don't know why they intended to make this a comedy drama type thing, like a heist type. No. I don't know why they did what they did, but I think the end result is exactly what they wanted to do, so 10 out of 10. Specialty category gets 15 out of 40 possible stars. When we add up all these stars, we get 42 out of 100 possible stars, 42%, which is pretty much garbage. I'm actually curious about what other movies I've rated 42%. So a couple of other movies I've rated 42% that you'll recognize is Grown Ups 2 with Adam Sandler and the first Scary Movie. Guys, tell me what you thought of Stockholm in the comments down below. As for YouTube, you know you can subscribe to me, hit that like button, hit that bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out.